Hello, everybody. This is here Jacob Daniel with Calvin and Ben. We are your hosts of the PA Take Human Action podcast, and we got an exciting episode here for you tonight. Before we bring them up, I just wanted to check in with my hosts, make sure that they don't have any. Do we have anything we want to update? As far as caucus things going on before we get into today's episode?
Well, it's the first time all three of us have been together, right?
True.
So that's exciting. I like that.
Yeah, I've been taking a little bit of a break and letting you guys go at it, and you guys have done some pretty good episodes. So that's all been fun and good to kind of watch rather than participate all the time. But I'm glad to be back. Looks like I was buying a little time for our other guest to show up, and so he's here. That worked out perfect.
Sweet.
So we can get into it then. So tonight,
I just have a few announcements.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Calvin.
So, as far as our last episode goes last week, unfortunately, Rob had a last minute scheduling conflict. Rod Coburn. We will definitely be having him again in the future. So this is now our episode 15. And we'll have him on maybe for episode 17 or 18, depending on how scheduling goes, because we do already have a guest lined up for next Thursday, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. So that's it for me, Jacob.
All right. Well, we'll be rescheduling with Rob in the near future. We got some other cool episodes coming up. Tonight we have a couple of guests who are, active leadership in YAL, Young Americans for Liberty, which Ben is also a part of, and we thought that we would have them on tonight to just have a conversation about what YAL is, what they're doing, and what specifically what's going on in Pennsylvania as well. It looks like we lost our one guy. Hopefully he'll come back. But the first guest we have is Dylan Oliver. Dylan, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me on. This is a great opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Good to have you.
Yeah, and then our other guest, he was in and he hopped out, so he'll probably hop back in at some point. Maybe he was having technical difficulties. Ben, you are our token YAL member here, so yeah. I'll let you and Dylan take it away with maybe starting with some of the basics about YAL and what it is and what you guys do.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Dylan's actually kind of my boss. He's also a good friend of mine. So it's great to have him on to discuss, what's going on in Pennsylvania and the Mid-Atlantic region as a whole for Young Americans for Liberty. So Dylan, thank you for coming on. Thank you for accepting our invite. So my goal kind of, as I was telling you guys earlier for this podcast, is I'm kind of hoping to foster like a positive relationship between Young Americans for Liberty as well as the Mises Caucus, because we have very similar origins. We both kind of have Ron Paul as our, main guy. Like none of us would be here without Ron Paul. And I think that's a very powerful thing. And I think we need to, really take note of that and do something with that. I just wanted to say that. Dylan, before we get into, Young Americans for Liberty, your role there, why don't you give us like a little bit about your personal political history? How did you come to the Liberty movement, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, no, thank you guys once again for having me on here. For anybody who doesn't know who I am, my name is Dylan Oliver. I am the Mid-Atlantic Regional Director at Young Americans for Liberty. So I oversee states like Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, along with West Virginia, and North Carolina. And then on top of all of that, I have been given the gift of the swamp as well to oversee. So I get a little bit of DC as well. So for me right now, working for Young Americans for Liberty, I've been doing it for a couple of years, but I really started back in the Liberty movement per se, like way back in like 2018, I think it was. And that's kind of like when I was first going onto campus. I was a freshman. I was on campus. I was a college Republican. I really did not know a whole lot about libertarianism other than Gary Johnson in 2016. So I guess you can kind of give credit to Gary Johnson for kind of bringing me into this movement. But in 2018, I was just a regular college Republican. I didn't really have a purpose other than, getting involved in politics. But, as I was a member of that, not really a member, I just kind of went to meetings, but as I was kind of like a member of that organization and that group, I came to notice that it didn't really align with my personal beliefs politically. And through all of that, I kind of went down this rabbit hole of like libertarianism and figuring out like, oh, this does make sense. And, I give Eric Brakey a lot of credit. He ran for United States Senate in Maine in 2018. And that was kind of like my first real exposure to the liberty movement. And so it was great to get a little bit of experience from, working and volunteering on his campaign. But, alongside of that, I took the group of college Republicans that were more liberty minded and that were actual libertarians. I took them with me. We started our own Young Americans for Liberty chapter at the University of Maine. That was all the way back in the spring of 2019. It seems like a lifetime ago now, but shortly after that, I was hired by Young Americans for Liberty in 2019 in the summer to be the state chair for Maine and for New Hampshire as well. So I got to do that role for 2 years, and I got to start so many new chapters in the states that I oversaw, and I got to interact with so many students. I also got to build some great relationships with state representatives, both in Maine and New Hampshire. That was a great experience working as a state chair. So let's kind of flash back about like a year ago. So August 5th of 2021, I was promoted to Northeast Deputy Regional Director at YAL, where I worked on staff for YAL, working from Maine all the way down to New Jersey in the field, starting YAL chapters, collaborating with other groups, and mobilizing students on the ground. And then since May, I have been the Mid-Atlantic Regional Director here at YAL. I now live in Austin, Texas, and work at the YAL headquarters here. So that's been a crazy and exciting new thing for me to be a part of overall. But the liberty movement, it's crazy because I've been here for a while, but overall it's like so much has progressed over these last 3 years, and now I'm fighting in the Mid-Atlantic, and Pennsylvania is one of my biggest target states in the Mid-Atlantic, and I have huge plans for the fall semester that's upcoming. There's so much to be done. It feels like we're in an election year here in 2022, and students on campus are ready to get involved. So it's like we have now is like the perfect opportunity to get these students who are already mad about what the government is currently doing, and we can get these students involved in a greater level, and they can actually make some positive impact.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Our other guest joined, so we'll maybe bring him up quick now and let him, do the same thing and introduce himself. Dan Taylor, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great, man. We're doing great. Yeah. So just to jump off what Dylan said, it is 2022. This is going to be the biggest opportunity the Liberty Movement has had in a long, long time. People are pissed off. People have seen what the government is willing to do over COVID lockdowns. People feel inflation. And probably for the first time, several million Americans have heard what the Federal Reserve is in the first place. So that's a good jumping off point for us. I started off in, 2016 in high school was when I first became a libertarian, jumping off the Tea Party movement, which mother was a part of. And a big person that was influential on me was actually Austin Peterson. If you go back into my high school days, there is a few pictures of my my high school band. I was in a little rock band in high school of me wearing an Austin Peterson shirt at shows. So that's the type of person I was in high school. I did not become less annoying as I grew up. So I just jumped into college. I joined Young Americans for Liberty after somebody recruited me online through Facebook. Started my chapter. After some time on my chapter, they said, "Hey, you're pretty good at this. You should start doing some stuff as the state chair." Built up 30 chapters throughout Indiana as a state chair, free speech work. One of my chapters hosted Gary Johnson in 2016, I think for a presidential debate. Afterwards, moved on. I was given the opportunity to drop out of college at 19 and join the national staff as a regional director. So I took that opportunity, kept growing from there, went on with Operation With the Door. I was one of the first people on the 3-man team, helped build up the original Liberty Candidate Academy. And now I just took over campus and oversee everything we're doing on that end. So revolution, everything with student rights campaigns, everything for free speech, all that type of stuff. Just essentially getting our students, getting them plugged into our grassroots movement and taking action from there.
Hell yeah. So both of you guys, Dylan and Dan, you guys mentioned that you started chapters or you joined chapters at your universities. Can you explain exactly what a Young Americans for Liberty chapter does on their college campus?
Yeah, for sure. So Young Americans for Liberty chapters, it's kind of a great thing because you look at college campuses now and you see so much of the same thing. It's liberal groups infiltrating in classrooms, trying to get students to rally for local far left progressive issues by sending speakers out in classrooms. And you see so many left-wing groups on campus that are coming up now too. But then we also have Young Americans for Liberty on campuses all across the United States. So Young Americans for Liberty chapter is, it's a group of individuals, of intellectuals that want to make liberty win on their campus. They want to interact with just regular students that maybe they're just middle of the road. They don't know anything about politics. They want to interact with those students, and they want to teach them about what liberty is and how liberty can make life better. So Young Americans for Liberty chapters, they're all across the United States. They are libertarian students on campus looking to fight to actually make a change. But these are libertarian students on campus that are going to be fighting, not just with like words. Like you hear people say fight back all the time. I mean, you hear Lauren Boebert, you hear Marjorie Taylor Greene, they say fight back all the time. But what does fight back actually mean? So Young Americans for Liberty chapters are groups of students on campus that are actually physically fighting back by changing policies on their campuses, whether it be with free speech, whether it be overturning mask or vaccine mandates on their campus, whether it be fighting for constitutional campus carry on their campuses as well. So Young Americans for Liberty chapters are groups of libertarian students on campus that aren't afraid to fight back against the status quo and specifically against the bureaucrats on their campuses.
Do you guys have any examples of some stories of some like something in particular that was really cool that a chapter did maybe recently?
Yeah, I'll let Dan take this one. He's got a very, very interesting story about what we just had last semester.
Well, that was a little vague, but I'll run with it. Yeah, I mean, if you guys were at Revolution, I just gave out 5 Prayers of Liberty awards, and these awards went out to kind of the students that I think best exemplified what we're looking for on college campuses and actually what looked like fighting back on campus. So I guess one story, if you look at South Dakota School of Mines, they have been fighting back consistently for the past year to get gun rights back on college campuses, which has been really awesome. And the chapter president there, Liam Slavin, just got a Torchbearer of Liberty Award at Revolution 2022. Originally, they went out there. This was immediately after COVID stuff, recognized that South Dakota has been a constitutional carry state. It was one of the very first constitutional carry states. These students in a rural community have the right to carry their firearm pretty much everywhere else and a right to self-defense anywhere else until they step on their public campus. And that's something that bothered a lot of people because the area in which the college campus was in was also a high crime area, especially for South Dakota. South Dakota is an extremely peaceful state, but as you can imagine, when you're surrounded by a community that's a gun-free zone, crime rates can increase as self-defense rates decrease. So they got organized. They started handing out petitions. They collected over 1,000 petition signatures, took this to the president of the campus. President of the campus refused to give them campus carry, essentially the right just to carry their firearms like they would anywhere else. So they decided to start phone banking. They texted everybody and called every student on that petition list that they got a hold of, had them call into the president just to increase the rate of calls in the president's office. He still refused. They had a protest and showed up and handed the petitions to him directly. He still refused. He refused to even come out and meet with them. Instead, he sent the dean of the students or some other bureaucrat to take his place. And it was at that point where I realized he was going to keep ignoring us until he felt the pressure to cave in. So instead, what they did is they went into the state legislative level, utilized the Hazlitt Coalition, which is y'all's legislative coalition, and killed an $8.25 million funding bill for the school because they did not have the right to self-defense, essentially saying, as soon as you have the right to self-defense, you will get your right back to funding. Right in quotation marks. We can talk about that later. But he still refused to cave in. At this point, I think we realized that the Board of Regents, which oversees the hiring of presidents in these schools, it is a semi-governance body. It's hard to explain. It's one of those nonsense bureaucratic areas that have a lot of power inside public education systems. Told him essentially that he would either be fired or give us, he would. He gave us campus carry, that he would be fired. So now we're taking the fight to the regent level. But and he also expected the pressure to let off at the end of the semester, going into a new year here in this upcoming semester, expecting that most of this movement, most of the students will be moving on, graduating, transferring, or not enough of the leadership left afterwards. But that's just not true. And we even just bought a billboard that looks immediately outside his office window that says, "Tell President Rankin or no, President Rankin leaves you defenseless. Call. We put his personal cell phone number to let him know to demand your right to self-defense back on college campuses. So now every single parent is going to come up and see that their kids are going to be living in a situation where they don't have a right to self-defense. Every freshman is going to be coming in and realize that the president of their university does not respect self-defense. And President Rankin, most importantly, is going to come up and realize that after the semester, after the smoke settled, that the flag was still there. Our students are still going to be showing up. We are stronger than ever. We're going to continue this fight until he gives us our right to self-defense back. We have several other examples of this on college campuses, but we are organizing and training our students to fighters. And everybody says fight right now, all right? The conservative movement, the establishment movement, every right-wing group wants to be fighters right now, but we've been fighters the whole time, and we're organizing students to be fighters. So I think South Dakota School of Mines is just an example of that. I also give out several other awards if we want to talk about that, but that's just kind of the textbook of what we want our students to exemplify, is just fighting until you get your rights back and applying pressure to whoever is holding those rights against you.
All right.
Yeah, it's awesome. Calvin, I think do you have a question that you want to go with?
Yeah, I mean, the campus story you just told is, it's very enthusiastic and a good effort on the part of everyone involved. It sounds like you made a lot more progress and thought of things I wouldn't have thought to try. So that sounds really cool. And that kind of goes into something that I wanted to bring up now. My first experience at a YAL convention was the one in Philadelphia in 2019. And Dan, I remember meeting you there. I don't know if you were there, Dylan. Were you there?
No, I wasn't quite involved at that level yet.
Okay, gotcha. So there were a number of Meathawks that went to that convention as well. Mike Heist was one of them, and we ended up doing the campaign training together. And I was at the whole convention, and then I went to campaign training as well. And I remember I made a lot of valuable connections there and learned a lot of things about working on campaigns that definitely helped and got me thinking later on. So since you brought it up, can you talk a little bit more about that and tell everyone here what that involves?
The Liberty Candidate Academy?
Correct.
Yeah, was I training at that back in 2019?
You might have been. I remember there were a lot of speakers, like Barrett. Barrett was there. I remember that.
Yep.
A number of others.
Yep. Wow. That's awesome. That was that's funny. You're throwing me back down memory lane. Yeah, Liberty Candidate Academy. It's essentially our boot camp. It's one day. We try to put 10 to 12 hours of training in, and just go through what we built out as 18 steps to winning a campaign. Which, I mean, there's obviously 18 of them, but steps which include organizing a campaign plan, building out a budget, fundraising, organizing endorsements, organizing door knockers, organizing volunteers, all that type of stuff. Essentially, the idea behind this was right around the launch of Operation Went the Door. And one of the big issues that we recognized was there's a lot of there are not enough candidates out there for us to successfully hit our original goal of 250, which we just surpassed recently. And we're now at 270. But anyways, looking at the field, there was not nearly enough Liberty candidates, and there were Liberty candidates, but there weren't viable ones. They were running around, they didn't know what to do. They just were trying to get their name out there, quote unquote. They're throwing signs out there, but no organized plan. They didn't know how to fundraise. This gave a lot of control to the establishment and the parties, which is a big issue for Liberty in general, because the party and the establishment would have control of the lists that we wanted to be built. They would have control to the donors that we wanted. They would have control to access to the people who would organize fundraisers or locations for you, or signs, or volunteers. So essentially, we had to put in place a training that would have people organize their own campaign to win with a Liberty message. That's essentially what it's all about. Now we've taken these all over the place, and primarily organized them around states where we are trying to identify and prepare future Liberty candidates. So you can go to yliberty.org/LCA to see the schedule of upcoming ones. I actually don't know what that is off the top of my head. We just had one with over 100 students after the Revolution 2022. But essentially, it's just our way of giving you essentially 12 hours of a boot camp straight, hard training, as well as just hard content. This is how you win your campaign. Follow these steps. And if you're viable and if you're principled, then you'll get a YAL endorsement as well, just to help you get through that grassroots campaign.
All right, thanks, Dan. Yeah, it definitely. If you're interested in getting involved in campaigns, I would personally recommend attending those. It was very helpful for me. Still have my notes tucked away for when I need them, and we were running the Maj City Council campaign in Philadelphia that year as well, and I remember you guys gave him a speaking slot at one point. So that was very much appreciated. That was right in the lead up to that campaign as well, and we're trying to run even more candidates now. We're running the most candidates since 1994 for the Libertarian Party in the state. So we're definitely making a lot of progress there.
I think that even if, because some of them have been challenged, but I think even if hypothetically all the ones that were challenged lost, I think that would still be the most by a wide margin, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think the last largest was like 10, and we're at like 23 before the challenges, but only 5 of them were challenged. So.
Yeah. Additionally, Mike was telling me about the early days when he was starting the caucus and starting the PAC, and he didn't know the first thing about what to do for that. And I remember very clearly he was telling me how he would come to y'all and got a lot of the advice to get the PAC started initially. So that was a big help there, and I'm sure he's grateful to you guys for that. So indirectly, you played a big part in helping us get to where we are today.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Yeah, I've heard Mike say the same exact thing to me. The LCAs, I've been to like 3 or 4 of them, and I learned something new every time. They're very, very informative. If you're running for local, state, or federal office, whatever party you are, it doesn't matter. You're going to learn something super valuable at one of those events. So I highly recommend attending one if you can. And they happen like in different cities, throughout the country, right?
Yep. Yeah, we have them all over the place. We primarily place them based off of what we're looking for in the upcoming primaries. We want to give candidates a good amount of time to get decent training and run a full campaign plan. So we place them strategically based off of the states in which we plan to deploy door knocker teams.
Okay, cool. So I wanted to ask you guys about Revolution 22. Obviously, I just got back from that, and I was hanging out with both of you guys there. I thought it was a great event. I had a fantastic time. Saw some great speakers. It was a really nice sort of gathering and unity moment of, Liberty Republicans, Big L Libertarians, Independents, and Tulsi Gabbard was there. So, maybe there were some other cool Democrats there. Probably not, though. You guys want to, tell people what Revolution 22 was, how'd it go? What's the point of Revolution 22? Why should people look forward to next year's Revolution 23?
Yeah, totally. Revolution 2022 was a surreal experience. Like, we had the same thing last year. We had Revolution 2021, but the speaker lineup this year was more stacked than ever before, honestly. And we had so many great names there. We had Dave Smith, we had Spike Cohen, we had Ron Paul, we had Tulsi Gabbard, Justin Amash, you name it. We had Kennedy there, Corey DeAngelis, all great people, all going up on stage and presenting the real ideas to people of, how things are actually being done in this country and how we can have an active solution to fixing them. So, like he said, Revolution 2022 just got done. This past weekend, we had 1,000 students in Orlando, Florida, gathered for this huge libertarian conference for pro-liberty people. People from all over the liberty movement were there. We had liberty Republicans there, like Ben said, along with just your regular capital L libertarians. And yes, Tulsi Gabbard too was there, and Tulsi brought some of her supporters there with her as well. And they were getting kind of their first exposure to like, what is this whole idea of the liberty movement, which was super cool to see. And, I talked to so many people over the weekend, and at the end of the day, the stories are all very similar. They are fed up with what they're currently seeing, and they want a positive solution. And the positivity from Revolution 2022 is going to be translating into that. So you're going to be seeing students this upcoming fall take everything that they have learned over the weekend about how to actually be effective liberty warriors in your area. People are going to be going back to their college campuses, and they're going to be taking everything they learned this weekend. They're going to be starting Young Americans for Liberty chapters. They're going to be challenging their campus's administration and the bureaucrats there that are imposing terrible laws, whether it be vaccine mandates or whether it be mask mandates, right? Because those are going to be coming back soon, right? It's not over with right now. You watch, there's going to be a lot of new mask mandates in place this fall and into the winter. So we have college campus students all across the country that are just ready to get back at it. They've been energized from this weekend. They have heard the speakers. The speakers have motivated them. The trainings have motivated them. So right now, it's a bunch of positivity in our corner because we have a great opportunity coming up. It's a 2022 election year. Students are ready to get involved. but we have just had our greatest event ever. And now we have 1,000 student activists ready to go out there and ready to be successful on their campuses or in their communities too. So it's like, it's really great to see. I cannot put into words what we just saw over this past weekend. The positivity from everyone there, it was incredible. And Dave Smith, he recently said, there's just something powerful going on here. That was the vibe that he got over the weekend at the Revolution 2022 conference. He said, there is something powerful going on here. And he said, it was really encouraging to see. So, I mean, we have a lot going on. I would love to, get into more details about what we have for plans in Pennsylvania, but this past Revolution 2022 event that we just had, it has so much positivity, ready to push into the upcoming fall semester.
Yeah, let me piggyback off that for 2 seconds. You talked about Tulsi here, which was interesting. As far back as I understand, first Democrat we've ever had, or previous Democrat we've ever had. I think she really was electrifying in her speech because she focused on the issues that were important, such as anti-war stuff. I think you guys being on the Mises Caucus podcast, I think war is the number 2 issue. I'll put Federal Reserve as the number 1 issue. I think we get rid of Federal Reserve, we get rid of war, we get rid of 7% of the issues of the federal government with those 2 moves alone. And she focused on that, and I think it was very powerful and some good talking points to understand where the left comes from on this issue, or rather, let's call it the old left. Not the modern left. Modern left is really different. But there was also a socialist, or rather a early 2000s socialist, that went and wrote an article about it, which was interesting because she was actually relatively positive, even though she disagreed with us on most of the issues she was there for. But the one thing that she kind of pointed out was essentially boiled down to, hey, they're not hypocrites, which I don't think the modern right or the modern populace or the modern left can say. They've been talking a big game for a while, and whenever it politically suits them, they switch to the other side. I mean, if you just look at the FBI raid of Trump, for example, the left has been talking about criminal justice reform or otherwise. Regardless how you feel about Trump, I'll be upfront about how I feel about him. I think he spent more money than any other president in history, and sunk us into debt. But at the same time, at the same time, you have to recognize it is.
But at least he built the wall, right?
Yeah, right. Right. Well, at least you could have said it. He did. He completed some task, whether you liked it or not, but he didn't seem to complete any tasks as a president. But anyways, other than putting us in debt, it is politically dangerous to see an administration utilizing the FBI, which is a federal agency that has guns, to utilize that power, their monopoly on violence, onto a political opponent. And I think that is absolutely terrifying and electrifying. And the left is pretending like it's no big deal because it's Trump. And the right is pretending that this entire time they haven't been pro FBI up until 5 minutes ago when they raided Mar-a-Lago. So when we talk about, Dave Smith saying something powerful is happening here, I think something powerful is happening to the entire Ron Paul movement. I think several different entities and groups are feeling this. It is time to fight back, and people recognize that right now is the opportunity we have to collect all the conservatives that feel disenfranchised with the federal government, as well as any of those people at the left that were sitting 20 years ago saying, hey, I hate the war and I want transparency, and recognizing that the left party left them long ago. So the time is now for the movement. The time to fight back is right now. And, we have a great opportunity with the general elections coming up to make that happen.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about especially the Ron Paul wing of the Liberty movement is that it brings right and left people. Like I know so many people in the Mises Caucus and related groups that are come from the right. I came more from the left. I was kind of like a Bernie Sanders guy. I would have been a Tulsi Gabbard person if I was still a Democrat when she was around. So I agree with everything you said there. What are your guys' thoughts on the Mises Caucus? We're all kind of children or grandchildren of Ron Paul, I guess, in a sense. So we're all kind of kindred spirits. But what are your impressions of the Mises Caucus and what it's doing? How much have you guys been paying attention to what's been going on there and within the Libertarian Party?
Yeah, no, I think it's great to see so many people in the Libertarian Party so motivated and ready to actually get things accomplished. And, I'm not entirely too well versed on a whole lot that goes on in the Libertarian Party, but one thing for just your average person that does know some things about the LP, it's that the Mises Caucus is doing big things. You guys are fundraising lots of money, which is great. You have big plans for the future of the party and for the future of just politics in America in general. So I think it's great to see the enthusiasm coming out of a lot of your supporters and a lot of your members. I talked to numerous Mises Caucus people over the weekend that were at Revolution. We had dozens of them there, and they were so excited. They were so motivated. And, getting to just talk to these people, it's like, you guys are great. We're happy to have you here at Revolution. We're happy to have you here in the Liberty movement. And, it's something I feel like we can complement each other very nicely, both YAL and the Mises Caucus, because there are radical individuals that are ready to make change in their communities. And I think that, we can complement each other nicely in sense of we can provide trainings to Mises Caucus. And I think that the Mises Caucus provides a great atmosphere within Young Americans for Liberty as well. So, I love to see the work that you guys are doing. I love to see the work here in Pennsylvania as well. It seems great, honestly, that there are so many people that actually care. And that, you're well organized too, which is something that I like. As a political party's caucus, it's great to see such organization, because personally, I believe that organization is key to success. So going forward, I'm looking very, very forward to working with the Mises Caucus, but also, looking forward to, what's coming up on campus in the fall, like I've said, because there's just so many positive things going on right now. And it's great to see that so many people from every different corner of the Liberty movement is ready to go and is well organized and well equipped and ready to make Liberty win. That's for sure.
Sorry, Calvin. No, there was so many. I wasn't able to make it. I wanted to. I was talking to Ben about going, but I wasn't able to make it. But yeah, so many people up here in PA who are fellow Mises Caucus members went down there, and it was cool being able to hear about all the different interactions people were having. I didn't know if Dan, if you had any comments you wanted to make, piggybacking off of Dylan there.
Yeah, not much. It is a YAL tradition to essentially, if you're fighting for liberty with us in this cause, then you're on our side. If you're not, then you're not on our side. I think Mises has a lot of the, very clearly is attached itself to Ron Paul, Dave Smith, and others that obviously just spoke at Revolution. So in which case, there's a lot of value. One thing I want to mention is just that there's many prongs that need to be attached for the Liberty movement. Our specific prong is organizing students on college campuses to fight back against college policies, as well as organizing them to win state rep campaigns and pass state level policy. So that is what we're doing. That is our Liberty movement in a sense, and that's what we're going to continue to do. I just had a conversation with Michael Heiss recently, which actually today, where we were kind of talking about the different visions of the organization, how he wants to see a lot of the Mises Caucus and the Libertarian Party stuff attack attack some of these nonpartisan races, as well as these races that are very viable for a liberty message. And really, if you talk to your neighbors, you talk to local people, they do believe in a liberty message. I mean, I'll say that to the day I die. People believe in liberty. They're just being sold something different. Or very often they're being sold liberty, and they're being sold out at the state level or in the legislative season. So I see a lot of areas for, I think it's great. I was a Mises Caucus kid 2 years ago, even through. One thing just about me is I'm a political operative at heart, which means I look for ways that liberty can be improved or pushed, and I'm going to push it in that way. If that means LP, then it means LP. If it means GOP, it means GOP. If it means Dem, it means Dem. As shown with Tulsi Gabbard, but it rarely means Dem. but I do think at the local level, there's a very, very strong opportunity right now, especially coming off 2022 with all these lockdowns that have occurred in the past 2 years. People are hurting. People have been damaged by the state. Now is a good opportunity to take that Ron Paul message local.
Yeah, I agree. And I've obviously put my flag in the Libertarian Party, but I've always kind of have the mentality that like a rising tide lifts all ships. And if people want to, the Liberty movement have a, passion to pursue different courses of action, whether it's in the Republican Party or the Libertarian Party or through just different political action committees that are, nonpartisan, I think we, attack the enemy, which is the omnipotent cult of the state on all fronts, right? I mean, that's what we have to do. I thought maybe it would be, at least interesting here for maybe take next 10, 15 minutes or so, maybe to talk about some of the recent events. And there's been some people in, I think just kind of like the Liberty movement, and especially our portion of the Liberty movement, broadly speaking, who have had, maybe some confusion or even some criticism of some changes at YAL, and maybe some of the positions of people at the top and leadership. And I just thought maybe it would be good to bring those up and maybe get your guys' opinion on those things. I mean, I know there was some controversy with some of the things that I guess like the new CEO has said, things that were sort of like not viewing the Federal, you said, I think like 5-10 minutes ago, like the Federal Reserve is kind of like the top issue, which I agree with, but I forget her name. I'm blanking on it at the moment, but
Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren. Yeah.
CEO.
Yeah. But her having a not thinking that's an issue that should be focused on, or things that were kind of like, we can't be critical of, Kamala Harris too much, or assault weapons imagery being scary and something that we don't want to push as hard. And the one that really got me flustered a little bit, just to be honest, when I heard it, was like comments about how Liz Cheney is libertarian adjacent, or like more libertarian than Trump or something like that.
Yeah. Hold on, let me stop you right there, all right? Because you're about to make me go nuts. No, that's insane. So first of all, Liz Cheney, libertarian adjacent, not at all. She is a war criminal. She should be thrown gulag. And at the same time, she sent thousands of our troops to die, as well as thousands and hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians over false pretenses, as well as trying to get into another forever war with Ukraine. I've been listening to enough already by Scott Horton. Exactly what's happening in Ukraine is another failed state that America has created, and we are trying to be baited into this to continue to run with these terrorist regimes, essentially. So, no, Liz Cheney's a war criminal. No one believes that she's liberty by any means. The context of that text, which was the entire text and the conversation you're talking out of, first of all, is out of bad faith. It was out of an employee that had a disagreement, which led to a termination, and then the information of those texts came out with the intent to harm Lauren. So bad faith in the first place, but she was not saying that Liz Cheney is more libertarian than Trump by any means. First of all, Trump's not libertarian by any means, but another story for another day. What she was saying was specifically, YAL should not be talking about election fraud. Liz Cheney said something along the lines of, I can't exactly remember, but it was something along the lines of about the elections, and then not necessarily being fraudulent. Lauren was saying we should not be attacking Liz Cheney for that, which is true. We focus on, I mentioned, a minute ago, we focus on college campus levels as well as state level policy that has nothing to do with Dominion voting machines. That's another person's fight. I don't really have a hard opinion on that. I think we're making a lot of movement at the state level. That's what we need to focus on, different organizations for different strokes. So, and I understand a lot of people have come to the point where they see these texts and it looks like, oh, Liz Cheney is better than Donald Trump. That's not true. But that is just in that specific instance, we should not be attacking Liz Cheney over voting machines. Same with Kamala Harris. We shouldn't be attacking Kamala Harris for the way she laughs. We should be attacking her for what she did to California, utilizing different people who are arrested for nonviolent crimes and using them to attack the wildfires or fight the wildfires as slave labor. So essentially, the whole point of these conversations was, let's talk about messaging. Let's talk about how we can attack these people for the right causes. We attack Liz Cheney constantly. You can go through her Twitter. I mean, she's one of the top enemies. She has actually phoned hundreds of thousands of dollars against Operation Went the Door and against the candidates we endorse. So she is a political enemy, not just a philosophical enemy, but one that actively utilizes dollars to try to stop our agenda. And Kamala Harris is obviously Kamala Harris. She's horrible, but we should attack her for the right reasons. And I think that also trickles down. I mean, this is unrelated here, but just something I think about. Like when we attack Biden for being old, or when some people attack Biden for being old. Ron Paul is much older. I would vote for Ron Paul today. I would love to see Ron Paul become president today. So the entire point is, let's not be hypocrites. Like I mentioned beforehand, I think being a hypocrite is something that will really kill your movement if we're trying to run a principled movement. Let's attack reasons for the reason we dislike it, and be very clear in our philosophy and back it up behind that. You can go ahead, though. I'm not attacking you.
No, that's fine. And this is honestly, a lot of this stuff I found out recently, and I was just like, well, and people are talking about it. So, it's relevant to bring up and I think dive into a little bit. Another thing, and this came up in an episode, I forget when it dropped, but Dave Smith and Michael Malice were talking, and some stuff came up about the past event. And I guess some of the speakers in the that showed up in the contract they signed said that they weren't allowed to, I guess, and I don't know, this again, going off hearsay, I can't say what the contract actually said, but the way it was posed to me was that the speakers weren't allowed to say anything critical about YAL for like the 12 months after the event, which I don't know, I have some mixed feelings about that. But some people found that to be a little strange. I don't know if you know anything about that, and what your thoughts are would be of people who maybe would have a critical opinion of it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, definitely understandable. It was a standard speaker agreement that the lawyers recommended to us. So that's where that came from. It's much more popular in corporate land. Obviously, political is a little bit different. So just what it is. Some speakers negotiated otherwise. Some didn't. Obviously, Dave Smith was on that podcast yesterday. We're not going to go after Dave Smith. Dave Smith was largely positive. I was very happy about how he handled all of that, as well as I'm really happy about the relationship Dave Smith and YAL is developing moving forward.
Yeah, and Dave was complimentary towards YAL and even Lauren, which should be noted. I think maybe, and I don't want to. I'll let Calvin and Ben chime in if they want to. I guess like the last thing I would say, just maybe where some people's concerns might be, if I'm going to try to maybe steel me on them, is that sometimes like those leaked messages and certain things that people have seen said, the thing with the contract and stuff, some people might be a little concerned that there's certain things in YAL that are getting a bit more kind of corporatized, and I think a lot of people kind of get a little bit averse to things like that. Like we see that kind of politically correct, sometimes referred to as sort of like woke mindsets in terms of how people run certain corporations, and sort of valuing, sort of like, these pleasantries and trying to not be offensive and hold to certain corporate policies and standards above, like an overemphasis maybe being placed on them, and that might be rubbing some people the wrong way. I mean, do you think there's potentially any merit to that, and people maybe being even if some of that stuff is, I think your explanations, at least as I'm hearing them in lifetime, make sense. I mean, I don't necessarily think there's has to be some nefarious thing behind it. I'm just trying to speculate as to what maybe some of the concerns would be.
Yeah. So that a few, I guess, points in that question to kind of break down. I don't know if corporatized is the right word. We're definitely developing as an organization. I mean, if you look in our past few years, we've been experiencing really rapid growth, and that can cause a lot of updates in systems as well as organization. For example, this is the first year we've ever had speaker contracts. So when you go from 0 speaker contracts for 12 years, and then on the 13th year, you start adding speaker contracts, people start paying attention. And part of that's just us developing and trying to be more secure as an organization. And that's something that needs to happen in a lot of organizations. A one-man show doesn't need an HR system. A one-man show doesn't need benefits. They don't need a 401k. If you're a sole proprietor or own your own business, there's a lot of things and systems you don't need to worry about that as you grow and become a bigger organization, you really do need to worry about. I mean, we have about 30 full-time staff, another 30 part-time state chairs, and several 50, which sometimes grows to 200 contractor employees on the campaigns. We're becoming very, very large, and we've grown from between a $500,000 to $2 million organization for first 8 years to a $3 million to a $7 million to a $10 million to a $13 million to a $15 million organization. We're just growing rapidly, and sometimes some of those things get cleaned up, like you have to have speaker contracts now, because you can't have the same relationship with all the speakers like beforehand. Now, at the same time, that doesn't mean we're going PC by any means. That doesn't mean that we're slowing up our mission by any means. We have actually expanded a lot of the more radical side of the things that we've done. I mean, I mentioned, or in the speech that I gave at Revolution 2022, we've passed several bills, constitutional carry, 4 different states, I think Texas, Indiana, Alabama. We tried to push it in Louisiana, but it got vetoed, but we're coming back for it. ESAs, Arizona, school choice, Kentucky. We were working on it in Virginia. We passed in Missouri. We're working on right to work. There's all these different types of radical bills. Federal nullification for the Second Amendment, or federal gun laws in New Hampshire, which is, I think, the most radical state level bill in the nation right now, essentially saying that they are going to ignore federal gun laws. So, a lot of these things is, yeah, New Hampshire's based. It's fantastic. And we have, New Hampshire is by far our biggest coalition there. We've helped elect, maybe Dylan knows the number, but between 50, 80, maybe more state representatives in their 400-person House. So we have a very, very strong coalition that can push these bills through. As well as the student rights campaign just came out recently, where we're now organizing the students to fight back against COVID policies. But I guess a lot of those things in which you're talking about, just corporatization, there's a reason a lot of free markets and good companies do this, which is what we live in. We just have to avoid the push of the, essentially the liberal agenda. And we don't have public shareholders like a lot of these companies do, which will protect us, which is why we can continue to attack for these extremely radical bills and continue to fight for federal nullification, which is a a politically dangerous take to have, but it's one that is necessary for the liberty movement. But some of these other things, such as speaker contracts, is something that is just a necessity out of the growth of the organization.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I'm certainly sympathetic to growing pains. That's something the Mises Caucus has had to handle both nationally and even in individual state affiliates. We've had some growing pains. So, I can appreciate that. And it's a you try something out, you maybe learn from it and go, okay, maybe next time we do it this way, and that's fine. And I think hopefully it was clear that the motivation behind the question, just because I actually, I like YAL, and I think that the Mises Caucus and YAL, I think that we could, do a lot of good things together. And I hope that anyone that had any questions about any of that stuff, hopefully this helps to set the record straight and make people, less critical if they were confused or upset about certain things that they heard. Because I think that, and even if people disagree with how certain things were handled, I think your position and answers are certainly fair and understandable. So, I think, Calvin, did you have a question, or Ben?
Well, I just wanted to chime in real quick. I just wanted to say that I think when it comes to these controversies, I think people blow them out of proportion and talk about them in a very over dramatized way. I would encourage people to just look at the work that YAL is doing. Not only has it not really, the controversies, have they really affected the work, but the work that YAL is doing is continually getting better, and you guys are getting, I guess we're getting more success every year. And I think you mentioned earlier that we have 270 elected representatives now.
Yeah, we just passed 270 last Tuesday.
Yeah, that's such an insanely awesome achievement, in my opinion. And what have we passed any significant legislation this year too, constitutional carry?
Yeah, constitutional carry as well as ESAs is the most radical school choice bill in Arizona that our coalition helped pass, as well as, and here's another fight that we're probably going to be taking up a lot more next year, but we're kind of testing out in Colorado, healthcare transparency. So Obamacare has created a lot of loopholes, a lot of tape, which essentially the insurance industry is taking over and is hurting both the patients as well as hurting the businesses such as the medical practices as well. So it's just transparency behind the pricing of what you're going to be paying for when you're going in there, which is essentially a fight against the insurance companies and price gouging from there, a fight back against Obamacare. So we're hoping to see that continue in the future.
All right. Thanks, Ben. I just want to ask a few questions of my own about some of the things that happened at YALCon to wrap it up. So one of the other things I remember that was mentioned, and I did do a post about this from our social media on the Mises Caucus PA page. I believe National did as well. I didn't check it to see later if there was a response there, but I don't think our post got a response as far as the tabling situation with the caucus getting a table in the past at the convention and not this year. So could you go over that for us and what happened there?
Yeah, I talked to Heiss about this as well. So if you guys have more questions, you can talk to Michael. Like I said, I just had a conversation with him earlier today, and he fully understands the situation as well. So this is one of those things where it got cleared up with everybody except for a few that were, outside those domains, or rather outside those immediate conversations. This goes into complex political money law, essentially.
And
so
tax status.
As tax statuses, yes. Yeah. So it's hard to explain, but I think the real question was that people kind of boil it down to is why were we able to last year and not able to this year? I can tell you that you were not, Mises was not the only group. There were several other groups that were rejected that were caucuses, Republican aligned caucuses, Libertarian aligned caucuses, as well as parties that we rejected as well. And it just comes down to this. We cannot have political expenditures at this event. It is 2022. We are spending more money than we ever have in the past on political expenditures. You can lose your tax status. YAL has lost its tax status back in, I think, 2011 or 2012 under Obama. There was a whole lawsuit against that. You can look into the historical archives. We lost our C3 status for a few months. We won that lawsuit, well, as well with another couple hundred organizations that unfairly lost it due to Obama's targeting and got our tax status back. It is very politically dangerous to lose a tax status. You can lose donors. You can accidentally or legally be forced to expose donors in a way that they do not want to be exposed, which is really just something you cannot do. I think it's even unethical, from my understanding, if you were to take money under the pretense that somebody will be able to keep their identity hidden, and then you later disclose it because you're forced to under the court. So we're spending more election dollars here than we ever have in the entirety of the past. So in the past, we would allow political entities such as caucuses, parties, or PACs to table. This year, we knocked that off across the board. Like I mentioned, we projected about 5 to 6 PACs. Essentially, it's because, like I said, we cannot spend political dollars. If we spend political dollars as part of Revolution, an auditor can go back and suggest that the amount of the dollars spent inside of Revolution had to be higher than we acquitted for. Last year, for example, Don Huffines, who we endorsed in 2018 for U.S. Senate, or rather state Senate, running for governor, said, vote for me. Well, when he said vote for me, we had to go back and apply political dollars to the event because he utilized that for a political expense. We applied most of the dollars to host the organization. Now we have to charge a bunch of political dollars just because he said vote for me. So as part of speaker contracts, as part of the growing of an organization, we also said every candidate, including Tim Baxter, who we love, can't say vote for me. So we had to have him talk specifically about philosophy, not about policy, or rather not about politics. You cannot say vote for me. You cannot say anything that is considered political advocacy. That is the specific change that happened from last year to this year. Last year, we only had 4 candidates. It's an off year, 2021. We had one special election in New Hampshire. Then there was Virginia and Louisiana, I believe, or maybe New Jersey, one of those years. One of them's on a 3-year cycle. One of them's on a 4-year cycle. So it alternates. But it was the intentional change to be fully educational so that we can save more of our political dollars for the campaigns for 2022. And it's a policy that was utilized across the board and fairly for everybody who was a political entity.
Right. And essentially, because the event was hosted by the 501(c) portion of YAL, which can't get into like political endorsements and political spending, that was, you know, because Heist talked to me about it too, and that was kind of the way he explained it, which I think makes sense. That's certainly reasonable, and yeah, you don't want to mess around with you know, trying to, you know,
yeah, the
test
IRS,
them out to see what they're gonna. Yeah, the IRS isn't very forgiving.
They're getting another 87,000 employees, so I'd rather not mess with them this year.
Yeah, no, they're quick to go after organizations like YAL. Not so much quick to, you know, there's still like millions of Americans who haven't received tax refunds, but you know, that's not a priority for them, of course.
Jacob, you know, there's one more thing I want to ask on that before we move on.
Sure.
Okay, so just going back to the messaging part of it for a minute. I know Jacob already gave a few examples, but another one that stood out to me was the post that Justin Amash had of his family holding the guns, and originally when
that was Thomas Massey, by the way.
Thomas Massey, my bad. Anyway, when he had his card with his whole family holding guns, and apparently he was advised that should not be something that they should share on the page. And well, just that and the overall direction of the social media. And I'll just say, for the sake of comparison, like one thing I like about the Mises Caucus, as far as the messaging on social media goes, is they stayed out. When they started out, they were, you know, strong, and you know, they're putting out that Ron Paul type messaging, and they still are. That hasn't changed. And now, like in many ways, the national party and the state parties are as well, thanks to our membership growing at the same time. So I think one could make the argument that, you know, y'all started the same way, but it's not heading in that direction anymore, and they're not necessarily going to be doing the same messaging on social media or elsewhere. that it started with, along the lines of what the Mises Caucus is doing now, as far as putting out the strong principled messaging, you could say. So what would you say in response to that?
Yeah, I radically disagree with that for a lot of reasons. I think if you just go through or scrolling through YAL's Twitter, I just pulled this up right now. This is live. Okay, first post, attacking Beto for going after the AR-15s. Next post, attacking the CDC over the something about individual decisions over virus protections. Next post, attacking the Federal Reserve for inflating our dollar. Next post, promoting a bill that we passed in South Carolina for protecting people from vaccine passports, protecting them from federal vaccine mandates. Federal, which is a federal nullification bill, protecting them against enforced mask mandates. Next one, going after or talking about 1984, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. I could do this all day. Lauren's the same person that approved the print guns, not money merch. Lauren's the same one that approved the not a victim merch, which is with the McCloskeys in the front. It's just one of those things where I think it is very much overblown. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, most of this stuff is based off bad faith. You can run through any of our media. We are still being more radical than ever. And I honestly believe we're more radical than ever before. Our staff is far more principled than beforehand. We were radicalized as much through COVID as many other groups were. And speaking of COVID, we were day one of the initial federal lockdowns. I have pictures of us protesting with the staff out at the Texas State Capitol. So I just radically disagree with that.
Yeah, it's better than the Libertarian Party was at the time. Of course,
yeah. And to talk about specifically with the Massey thing, I mean, Lauren's a very collaborative person. That was opening a discussion with the rest of the staff. Everybody radically disagreed. People loved the Thomas Massey postcard. We moved on, and then afterwards, she approved the print guns, not money merch, which I would claim is a pretty radical message to be putting really at the front end of her brand.
That's fair. It's just come up in multiple podcasts at this point, like around the time that Reed initially departed from y'all, so I wanted to give you guys a chance to respond to that.
Sure, and I understand that, but I just the only thing I can ask for y'all is just look at what we're doing, man. We had 1,000 kids chanting "In the Fed" for Ron Paul. We had thousands of kids cheering for Dave Smith. We Spike Cohen went up and said to end the ATF, FBI, TSA, and there was a chant that said "Lock them up." So this is the group that we're organizing. I really believe we are the most radical youth group that exists right now. And I think it's all part of the Ron Paul movement that is being reignited through the tyranny of COVID.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah. And I think like you're the only youth group where I keep forgetting that I'm in YAL. So we're the only youth group that I think out of like Turning Point USA, Students for Liberty, Young Americans for Freedom, College Republicans, we do the most like real badass grassroots activism that is actively making more people free in our lifetime. And that is, you can easily back that statement up with so many different numbers and figures. So at the end of the day, though, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add, and proudly applying political pain. This was the first revolution. This was the first YAL event ever in which I heard people cheering, standing ovation for real nature of politics. That is a political hour-and-a-half long training. The fact that you have hundreds, I mean, everybody knows this, in the middle of the day, around noon after lunch, you can barely fill a room. But the fact that we had, 1,000 seats set and most of the room was filled, and there were people getting up and cheering for Patrick McGrady when talking about political pain, and organizing around that was seriously mind-blowing for me. I mean, it was the most invigorated I've ever been. I've never seen a political training in which people are actively cheering like it is a speech, which is crazy. I think that just shows the doctrine that people are ready to not just, like, people are tired of the book clubs. People are tired of saying that they know what the right ideas are. We have been screaming at the top of the lungs that lockdowns and vaccine mandates are immoral for years. We've been screaming at the top of our lungs about the evils of the Federal Reserve, the evils of endless war for decades. I would say since the 70s, if not earlier. And people are tired of yelling. Their voices are hoarse. They're ready to organize. And the fact that people are cheering for real nature, I think, shows that I feel proud in the fact that I feel that we are an org. I'm not saying the only org. There's several good orgs in the movement. But we are an org in which our students are now radically understanding the doctrine of political strategy and applying that in force to make change.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And, there's tons of good collaboration. Dave Smith, like I said, was very, lots of praise to the YAL people, including including Lauren and the energy that was there and the people that were there, especially how many young people that were there and active and involved and energetic and enthusiastic and, ready to go out and do stuff. So it's, I think it's one of those things, it's the weekly Twitter cycle, right? Like, everyone,
Yep.
everyone piles on with a couple things taken out of context, shocked Pikachu face insert here. So, but yeah, I'm glad we gave you the guys the chance to talk on some of those things. So hopefully it clears some of that up for some people. Ben, I think you wanted to ask a couple questions here before we close out.
Yeah, we're going a little overtime here, so sorry about that, guys. But at the end of the day, this is a podcast about Pennsylvania and libertarianism and liberty politics going on in Pennsylvania. Earlier in the podcast, Dylan, you mentioned that you had some cool plans for the Commonwealth. I think maybe a great way to end this episode would be to let the people know what you have in store. Most of our listeners are in Pennsylvania, so why should they get involved with YAL? Why should college students in Pennsylvania start getting involved with YAL in Pennsylvania right now?
Yeah, for sure. And, I just want to give a couple of my own sense on the, everything that's gone on the last couple of days podcast wise before I continue. But it seems, people are always going to try to criticize others. But, there's only so many groups that can come out on top of all of that. And, Michael Malice has a lot to say about us. And at the end of the day, I think we're kind of living rent free in his head, but he keeps going back to these same topics, these same comments that are positive about us. He keeps saying things like, these kids at Young Americans for Liberty, they just blow me away. Like he keeps saying they have their heads glued on straight. He said they understood the nature of what they were getting into, that they had tactics that were very effective. And he said, like holding people accountable. He said that on his podcast with Dave Smith. And then he went back a couple of days prior to that. He was talking to Charlie Kirk on his podcast. He said the same thing about Young Americans for Liberty students and just about how blown away he was. So it's great to see that we're kind of living rent free in his mind for a little bit, but it's awesome to see that we have this energy and people are recognizing it. And that is what we're doing in Pennsylvania right now. So I have huge plans for the upcoming semester for Pennsylvania. And, I talked a little bit about the student rights campaigns. Dan did as well. But with these student rights campaigns, Young Americans for Liberty is teaching students on campus exactly how to fight back. I said it at the beginning of this podcast. People say fight back all the time, but there's never any action that goes with that. So what we're actually doing is we're teaching students how to physically fight back against campuses with our student rights campaigns. So for example, at Grove City College in Pennsylvania, we are going to be working to enact a campus carry bill, a petition that we're going to start at that school to make sure that we can get campus carry in, or particularly at that school. It seems to be a pretty conservative school, but we'll see if they actually are. That's one of the things we have big plans on for student rights campaigns. And, this is a program that has been proven to be effective. Just last semester, we ended the vaccine mandate at Sacred Heart University in Connecticut. We ended a mandate at the University of Nebraska that had a mandatory app that tracked students via Bluetooth to see if they went off campus or not, which would ultimately determine whether or not they had to be retested before they were let into their schools. So the student rights campaign that we have is super effective. We had a training session over the weekend at Revolution for students on targeted campuses, and a lot in Pennsylvania and throughout the region that I oversee. They were able to brainstorm with other students and with our SRC strategists and our director of student rights as well to figure out what the plan is going to be on their campuses. So we are mobilizing students to fight back on their campuses this fall by overturning bad school policies, whether it be vaccine mandates, whether it be enacting campus carry, but also overall what we're doing, it's super positive right now. We have plans to start so many new chapters. I talked to numerous individuals over the weekend at Revolution 2022 that are ready to get back and they're ready to start chapters. And at the end of the day, it isn't just people on campus. And I think this is where the Mises Caucus kind of plays in. There are so many people in the community that maybe they're in their mid-20s, that they've graduated from college, that are lacking a purpose. So Young Americans for Liberty kind of comes in to fill that void for you as well. So if there are people in the community that want to get more involved and that actually want to make changes, joining Young Americans for Liberty in Pennsylvania is a great opportunity to not only learn how to fight back, but how to apply pressure, not just on campus, but in your community as well. You can take these same skills that we can teach for people on campus. You can take those skills back to your communities. And who says you can't fight back against your school boards or fight back against your zoning boards or city councils or, trying to abolish mask mandates in your cities and in your towns. So Young Americans for Liberty offers kind of that area to foster a home for like pro-liberty activity. So, it's not just the students on campus. If there are campus students out there that want to get involved, I would love to have you reach out to me and get in contact. We could help you out in so many ways in terms of starting new YAL groups in Pennsylvania, providing the resources necessary to be successful, but also providing trainings as well, which will ultimately set you on the way for success so that you can actually make liberty win in your communities.
Almost makes me want to go back to school.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Dylan. We'll just do one audience question before we close out. So I think we just got a good one here. It's from our former co-host and now LPPA chair, Rob here. How can we, as in the Libertarian Party in Pennsylvania and y'all, connect to drive the liberty movement forward?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think I kind of touched upon it a little bit in what I just said, but there is a space for Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania to come together with Young Americans for Liberty to host community events, whether it be Liberty happy hours, whether it be having members of the community attend YAL on-campus chapter meetings as well, in a way to kind of foster more collaboration between the two groups. Because like I said, I've said it many times, it's 2022, it's an election year. There are people that are ready to get involved, and this is going to be one of the biggest opportunities for us as an organization. So we would love to see people from the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania come together with us to collaborate. I know when I was a state chair back in 2020 in Maine, I wasn't able to go on campus in the fall of 2020 a lot because of COVID mandates. So what I would do is I would work directly with the local Libertarian Party and get them involved, because while on-campus activity wasn't happening so much, you're able to look towards other areas and get more groups involved. So in terms of, a relationship between the two, I think it would be great to see if we could get some more collaboration going within events or just inviting people to our YAL campus chapters.
Yeah. Well, to that effect, and I agree with everything that you just said. And what can people do if they want to get involved? How can they connect with you guys, find out more, and and if people want to follow, reach out to you, either of you specifically, you can give people some of those connections and plugs here before we close out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm on Twitter. It's pretty easy. It's Dylan for Liberty, Dylan #4 Liberty. You can DM me and start a conversation there, and I'd love to help you out, help you start a chapter. That's one way that you can get involved with me as well. But yeah, other than that, I think Dan's on Twitter as well. He's at the Liberty Dan, so you can reach out to him there as well and get involved. And we'd love to have a conversation with you about what we can do to take it to the next level.
All right.
I'm trying to decrease the number of followers I have, so yeah, definitely don't. Do that.
We're gonna screw that up for you. I'm sorry.
Just send the thing every day and nothing else. I don't know if that'll help you some or lose you some.
Awesome.
I'm trying to fade to black, but yeah, you can go to yliberty.org. If you don't know how you can get involved, if you're looking for a full-time job, want to jump in into the general election, just yliberty.org/knock. If you want to join on campus, yliberty.org/join. If you don't know yet, just go to yliberty.org and figure it out.
Awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate you both coming on, Dan and Dylan, to talk about YAL and answer some of our questions to hopefully clear up some of the misconceptions, because I think YAL's a great organization. Ben's a good friend of mine, and I know anything Ben's involved in is going to be a class act, because he is a class act kind of guy. So you guys are lucky to have him. Although we're going to fight you for him, though, as far as where he spends his time. We're going to be got a little tug of war over him, I guess. But Ben,
settle down. There's enough of me to go around. Okay.
I don't know. It's Austrian economics and scarcity, I guess. So you need to make two of yourself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you guys want to work with us on something, any projects that you think we might be able to get involved in, then our door's open to you. So thanks again for coming on.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I appreciate it. I think it's a huge year for us. There's just massive opportunity for the Ron Paul movement. So it's glad to see these collaborations being created.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Ben, you got anything quick before we close out?
I feel like the Mises Caucus and the Libertarian Party and Young Americans for Liberty are like my two groups of my favorite people, and it was really cool to bring them both together for this episode and talk about, our differences and our similarities, how we can work together, clear up the air and some controversy. I think it was a great episode. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I have a lot of respect and admiration for both of you. And my time as state chair for Young Americans for Liberty is ending very, very soon, like literally a couple days. But yeah, so I'm ready to help out, whenever I can, whenever I have free time. It was great having you guys on, and I look forward to working with y'all in the future.
All right.
I guess that means we'll have you full time now.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks again to Dan and Dylan for hopping on. And go out there and remember to take human action.
Well, Jacob, what are your plugs?
What are my plugs? Oh, it's at Biblical Anarchy if you want to follow me on Twitter. And of course, if you want to follow the Mises Caucus, it's the PA at least. It's the LP Mises Caucus PA, like it says in Calvin's little thing there. And if you want to find out more about the caucus, takehumanaction.com as always.
Real quick, Jacob, you and me right now are in a race to get 3,000 followers.
Yeah, I'm going to beat you.
I don't know about that. I think I'm closer than you are right now. So
here, Dan, send me some. If you're trying to get rid of followers, I'm trying to get followers. So just tell people to unfollow you and come follow me. Okay.
Well, we're also competing with the other state caucus accounts, so get the PA one up there too. We're the only one with a podcast right now, so we got an edge on them. We need to capitalize on that more.
I followed you like let's see here. I followed you, Jacob, like 5 minutes ago. So there you go.
Nice. And go unfollow Ben.
Oh, right, okay.
God, this is kind of like I'm creating my own artificial monopoly here. I'm stacking the deck against me. All right, we're already over time. Thanks everybody again. We're gonna close out, and we will see you back next time.